Alrighty guys, I'd like to give you just a quick introduction to sketching in Onshape. As I've said before, these 2D sketches are kind of where all CAD models start. And to visualize what we're doing, we want to look at our object from whichever side is going to give us the most detail of that object. So for example, I'm going to be sketching out a design for a bubble car, a wooden toy car. I'm going to look at it from the side profile. So when I go up here to create my sketch, there's a big button that says Sketch. That's going to open up a little sketch menu here. That's going to give me a place where I can select the 2D plane that I want to do my sketching on. If you're just getting started with your CAD model, you're going to want to select one of the 3 default planes. So if I'm sketching a side view, maybe I want to select this right plane. Now it's there, it's created my sketch. I'm going to go up here to the magic cube, click the right face, and that's going to zoom me into the right side view. So now I'm ready to do my sketching. So up here, you'll see this menu changes when you create a sketch. This menu is now a 2D sketching menu. It's got a lot of different tools for sketching different shapes, lines, curves. It's also got what are called constraints. And so if you mouse over any of these constraints, it'll tell you what they are and what they do. And some of these you know probably pretty obvious. You probably know what parallel means, or what horizontal or vertical or perpendicular means. They're all very useful things for forcing certain geometric conditions to be true. So to get started with my bubble car design, I want to, as part of my constraints for this project, keep my design under 4 by 6 inches. So it's going to be a small little toy car. The easy way to think about sketching is starting from general to and working your way down to specifics. And so if I think about the overall rectangular profile of my car, I'm going to go up here and click the center point rectangle. You hit that little drop down box. There's 2 different ways of doing rectangles, but the center point rectangle, let me click a center point and mouse out to create a rectangle. And so I want to kind of treat this rectangle as the constraints for my size of the side profile of my car. It's not actually going to be part of the car. These are just kind of guidelines to direct my design. And so what I'm actually going to do is, instead of making these solid lines, which these solid lines represent part of the design you're working on, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make them construction lines. And so if I select those lines, select construction lines, you'll see they're now dot and dash lines. These construction lines are just guidelines to help me work out the rest of my sketch. They won't actually be included as part of that sketch. Now I said 4 by 6 inches, so obviously these sizes aren't set for the sides of my rectangle, and I could click this and drag this around to be any size. But you see, with the center point rectangle, I clicked on that origin point. No matter how I move this rectangle around, that center of the rectangle is always going to be centered at that origin point. So that is actually something called a coincident constraint. You've got to be a little bit careful. If you click, when you're creating something, if you click on a line or a point, those things are going to be stuck together. Just like the center of my rectangle is stuck to the center point here. To set the size of this rectangle, there's what's called the dimension tool. So I'm going to go up here and click dimension. A dimension is just the size of something. And so if I'm talking about a side of my rectangle, that dimension is going to be a length. And so let's say I want this to be no bigger than 4 inches this direction. I can click and do this other side as well. I want that to be no bigger than 6 inches. And so that is the overall constraint for the size of my toy car that I'm making. So let's make the body of my car. Maybe I'm going to start with some lines. And I'm just going to go around and try to sketch the profile of what this car is going to look like. And so I start with something like that. I'm going for something a little sporty, but we'll see how well that works out. I want to add some curvature to the top of this car. And so there's different ways of doing curves. You can do something called a spline, which will be an arbitrary curve. I like working with circles. An arc is just like part of a circle, and so if I click 2 points, I can make an arc. And I can always click these points and try to make them bigger, smaller, work with them however I need to. But you got to be a little bit careful, because if you click on like one of these lines, like you'll see it snaps to the horizontal line or snaps to the origin. If you do that, then you're going to kind of be stuck there. So I'm just going to set that off sort of in the middle. I'm going to keep adding a few curves to make the rest of my car. Now, there, I didn't click on that point. I really want this part of the car to be on that point, so I'm going to hit escape, and that'll undo what I've done, and then I can go back and try it again. So as I'm adding a whole bunch of curves, I'm thinking maybe a spline would have been a better way to go, but we'll try this. Just play around with that, see if I can get it to line up more how I would like it. Here we go, that looks a little better. Okay, so that's going to be the profile of my toy car. And now if you get like a sharp corner like this, another useful tool for sketching is something called a fillet. And so if you click the fillet, click a corner. So for example, say I want to smooth this corner out here, the fillet will add a little bit of a roundness to that sharp corner. And so that may or may not be something that you want to add to your sketch, but you can always round off those corners. What I'd like to do, I would like to see how the wheels for this design would look. And of course, the wheel is going to be a circle, so I'm going to use a center point circle. And I know that I've got some prefabricated wheels that are 1.5 inches in diameter. So I'm just going to make 2 circles here. Now, these circles aren't where I want them. They're not the size that I want them to be. So I can always go up here and hit dimensions. And let me set the diameter of this circle. I want that to be 1.5 inches. And now, I want this other circle to be the same diameter, because I know those two things need to be equal. And so if you look up at this constraint menu, there's something called equals. I'm going to click equals. I'm going to click my 2 circles. And it's always going to make those the same. So if I end up with something, say, not a 1.5 inch wheel, but a 1.25 inch wheel, I can always go back up here and change that. And you'll notice that it'll keep these, you saw both of those circles change. It'll keep these the same size, regardless of what I enter in for those dimensions. And so I also want these wheels to be even. Like I want them to be along the same horizontal line. So there's a horizontal constraint here. So I'm going to click horizontal. I'm going to click these 2 center points of my circle, and it's going to move these 2 circles so that they are level with each other. Now obviously those wheels are not where I want them to be. So I can go and add some more dimensions to make this a little more precise. So for example, I probably want this thing sitting a little bit lower. Let's make that 0.5 inches. So you'll see that's the distance from the center point of the circle to the bottom edge of my car. So that'll move that down a little bit. And you'll see it move the other one down as well, because those are forced by the horizontal constraint to be horizontal. And maybe let me just adjust the spacing manually with these guys. Just kind of scoot them where I think they need to go. Now, these wheels, they're just for me to kind of space out, make sure I've got my proportions right. I'm actually going to make those construction lines as well, because I don't want them part of my car body profile. I just want them as a reference to help guide my design. So again, I'm going to use the circle constraints, the construction lines to make those circles. And now I know that the axles for the wheels that I got need to be 1/4 inch. So these are not going to be construction lines. I'm going to draw some little circles here that are 1/4 inch in diameter, centered where my wheel should go. I'm going to make that 0.25. And so that will actually be the hole that we use for the axle of the wheel. And you can Control-C, Control-V, and paste parts. So for example, here I just copied that wheel. I'm going to move it so it's centered in the other circle. It should snap there. And there I've got 2 axles for my wheels. I need to add some windows. Let me go here and build some windows for my bubble car. Just do a quick dimension here, kind of eyeballing what this is going to look like. Ooh, too big. And maybe I want this to look all fancy, so let me add a few more circles. And so these are just going to be windows for my car. Maybe let's make that 0.5. Kind of just following the line of the roof of this car design. Then we'll make a little window here. Alright, so that is the sketch for my bubble car. Check out the next video and we'll make this actually look a little bit 3D.